welcome to the Deep Dive.
Yeah.
We're here to pull out the most valuable bits of knowledge and insight from a whole range of sources, just for you.
That's right.
Have you ever had that feeling,
Yeah.
that intense drive to create something new, push things forward, but you feel like you're, well, operating kind of ahead of everyone else?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're juggling a few different passions, pretty high-level stuff, and the tools or the help you thought would be there, it just isn't quite ready for what you're trying to do.
Yeah, that feeling of being what was it, polymath trying to scale themselves?
Exactly. Someone deep into different complex things, trying to really multiply their impact way beyond what one person can normally manage.
It's a unique challenge.
So today, we are diving deep into a really fascinating mix of sources that one of our listeners sent over. We're going to connect the dots between some very personal reflections from a high achiever dealing with early AI,
Okay.
then jump straight into the intense strategic world of something called boompot poker.
Interesting shift.
And then we'll zoom out for a more philosophical look at the odds of success in life, in your career.
Quite the range.
It really is. Our mission here is to pull out those surprising facts, the practical tips, maybe those aha moments from all this varied stuff.
Yeah, showing how things that seem totally unconnected can actually teach us a lot.
Right. We want to uncover strategies for handling complex situations, whether you're deciding your next move at the poker table or, planning your career path. So let's get into this blend.
Let's do it.
We're kicking off with a really personal story from one of the sources. This person talks about the huge pressure they feel trying to balance all their creative and intellectual work.
Mm-hmm.
They mention publishing books in French and English, not German yet, they point out, and doing it all solo.
Wow.
Yeah, and the weight of self-publishing, they say, is massive, especially because they kind of expected more help from AI or even just other people, but it hasn't really panned out like they needed.
And what really jumps out is just the sheer effort involved. He talks about, 17-hour workdays?
Yeah, 17 hours. Pushing through burnout.
Right. Dealing with burnout, but somehow managing to stay productive. And his method is interesting, cycling through different passions.
Piano, trading, writing.
Exactly. Using variety to stay mentally fresh, I suppose, even under all that pressure. And his thought on AI is crucial here.
What's that?
That it's just not quite there yet. Not for the really nuanced, high-level creative partnership he was looking for.
That experience really does capture a key idea from the sources. When you're ahead of the curve, you're often alone.
It rings true, doesn't it? It's not just tech.
No, it applies to any path that's kind of new or different.
Wow.
What's a common trap people fall into when they hit that alone stage?
Well, I think it often comes down to managing expectations. You expect the world or the tools or the support systems to be ready for you.
And they just aren't.
Exactly. They don't exist yet, or not in the form you need. When you're operating out there where the infrastructure hasn't caught up, you are isolated.
So what do the sources suggest? Just push through.
Sort of. They imply that instead of just fighting the feeling, you almost have to embrace it as a necessary phase, a time for really deep, focused work. But here's a slightly surprising angle.
Go.
Leveraging that solitude, not just to focus, but to actively hunt for specific, maybe unconventional support.
Like what?
Finding collaborators who maybe don't get the whole picture but can help with pieces, or finding those tiny niche communities just starting to bubble up around your area.
Okay. So it requires massive internal drive, but maybe gives you a unique clarity.
That seems to be the idea. It forces self-reliance, but also sharpens your focus like nothing else.
So for you listening, if you're on a unique path, juggling big projects, maybe trying to use tech that's still half-baked, how do you handle that pressure?
Right.
How do you keep going and find help when you're basically cutting the trail yourself? Maybe understanding that this solitary phase is part of pioneering work can change how you see it. Less unsupported, more uniquely positioned.
A potential advantage, yeah.
Now, that pressure of forging your own path, sometimes alone, it actually has some interesting parallels in high-stakes situations where everyone gets thrown in together.
Okay, where are we going with this?
To a really fascinating poker game called Boompot.
Boompot. Never heard of it.
It's pretty unique. It's a format where all the players have to see the flop, the first 3 community cards. Everyone contributes to the pot, no matter what 2 cards they start with.
Wow, okay. So everyone's forced in every hand.
Every single hand. Imagine that table.
That completely changes the game dynamics. Discipline must be everything.
Exactly. Since everyone's forced to put money in and see those first 3 cards, your starting hand, those 2 cards you get, they matter less pre-flop. It becomes all about smart decisions after the flop.
Right. The sources must stress being super selective post-flop then.
Absolutely. You have to fold most hands, even ones that seem okay, because you're up against so many other players. It just waters down the strength of almost any hand.
Makes sense. Too many chances someone else hit something better.
And position acting last becomes even more critical. You see what everyone else does first.
Standard poker wisdom, but amplified here.
But here's the really interesting tactic the sources highlight.
Yeah.
Using small bets, like tiny bets.
Small bets in a pot everyone's forced into. Seems counterintuitive.
It does. We're
Yeah.
talking maybe just one big blind or like a quarter of the pot. They aren't really designed to win a massive pot right then and there.
Okay, so what's the point? It's tactical. Those small, sort of probing bets, they're used to try and thin out the crowd without risking much yourself.
To get the weaker hands to fold.
Exactly. You're trying to figure out who's serious and who's just hanging on. It's about gathering info and controlling the pot size cautiously. You want fewer opponents by the time the later cards come out.
So the advice is definitely don't make big bets unless you have a monster hand that plays well against multiple people.
Precisely. And the sources use this great metaphor. They say having a top pair in a pot like that with tons of players, it's not that strong.
Right.
It's like owning a nice country house in Beverly Hills.
Okay. A nice country house?
Yeah, it's good on its own, right? A nice house. But if it's sitting there surrounded by these mega mansions worth tens of millions, suddenly your nice house doesn't look quite so impressive.
Huh. That's brilliant. It perfectly captures how strength is relative, especially in a crowded field.
Totally.
So the takeaway for you, the listener, think about times you're kind of forced into a situation. A group project where everyone has to chip in, maybe, or entering a new market swarming with competitors.
Yeah, where participation isn't optional.
How do you apply that kind of discipline? How do you use your position, maybe just wait for the right moment? And crucially, how do you avoid going all in, basically, when everyone else is also stuck in the situation?
It's about strategic patience. Small, calculated moves instead of just trying to overpower everyone.
Okay, let's drill down into a specific example now, a hand analysis from the sources that pushes this idea of strategic pressure even more.
Right, let's see it.
Picture this. A player has pocket fours, a pair of fours. They're in the big blind position. Someone just limped in, called passively, and then another player raised.
Okay, classic tricky spot with a small pair out of position after a raise.
Right. What's the move?
This is where the poker coach, Norman, his insights get really interesting. He actually recommends going all in, shoving your whole stack pre-flop with those pocket fours.
All in. With just fours. That sounds risky.
It is, but there's a crucial condition if you are the chip leader, if you have the biggest stack at the table.
Ah, okay. Why does being chip leader make shoving with fours a good play?
It's not really about the strength of the fours themselves. It's about the pressure you can apply because you're the chip leader. Most hands that might call you aren't overwhelmingly better.
Like medium pairs or ace-king type hands.
Exactly. And crucially, you can force folds from decent medium-strength hands that just don't want to risk their entire tournament life against the big stack on what might be a coin flip or worse for them.
So you're leveraging your stack size.
Precisely. It's a calculated gamble using your position of power.
Now, interestingly, in the actual hand described, the player didn't go all in initially.
Oh, what did they do?
They made a smaller raise to 6 big lines, then someone else shoved on them. And the player with the fours ended up folding.
Okay.
And Norman actually agreed with the fold after the player had made that initial smaller raise. It shows how the right play can change based on the flow of action.
Right. Decisions are dynamic, but the core lesson from Norman's initial advice seems clear.
Which is?
When you're chip leader, pressure is a weapon. It's not just about having chips. It's about using the threat of those chips.
Okay, so this introduces that poker concept, fold equity.
Exactly. Fold equity is the value you gain purely from the chance your opponents will fold to your bet. When you have a big stack, you have massive fold equity.
You can make it too expensive or too risky for others to continue, even if they think they might have the better hand.
That's it. And this translates outside poker, right? It's not just about money. Think about life, career.
Where else can you be the chip leader?
Maybe you have more experience, more influence, a stronger network, specific expertise, or just more resources like time or capital for a project.
Okay.
You can leverage those advantages to apply pressure to make it more likely others will defer, concede, or fold on a certain issue or project, even if your core idea or hand isn't guaranteed to be the absolute best.
It's about understanding the psychology of the situation, the risk tolerance of others involved.
And strategically using your strengths to influence the outcome.
It definitely makes you think. When are you the chip leader in your world, your job, your projects?
Yeah.
Maybe you have deep knowledge in one area or you've built strong relationships. How can you use that position, that stack, strategically? Not just passively having it, but actively using it to create that full equity to get things done.
Even when the direct odds might not look amazing on paper, it's about playing your advantages.
Right. Using your resources to sometimes force the issue when you have that edge.
Powerful concept.
Okay, so we've gone from personal creative struggles to forced poker pots to leveraging chip stacks. Let's zoom out now.
To the really big picture.
Yeah, let's broaden the discussion to a more philosophical level, looking at career paths, success, and some pretty startling probabilities that our sources bring up.
Ah, the odds of making it. This should be interesting.
This part really makes you stop and think about how we chase success.
The numbers here are quite eye-opening, aren't they? They really challenge common ideas.
They do. Like the odds of winning a major lottery. We hear about winners, but the odds are
Astronomical. Something like 1 in 28 million, according to the source. Basically zero.
right. And becoming a huge celebrity YouTuber. Still incredibly rare.
Yeah, 1 in 4.7 million. Still lottery ticket territory, practically speaking.
Even breaking into professional sports, which feels more attainable to some.
Still a long shot. Around 1 in 31,000. Think about how many kids dream of that versus how many actually make it.
It puts those dreams in perspective.
Mm.
And then what about entrepreneurship? The dream of starting your own successful business.
The odds get better there, significantly better than the lottery or YouTube fame, but still tough. About 1 in 2,000 for a successful outcome, however that's defined.
Which is still a major gamble. But here's the kicker. The path with the highest probability of success based on these sources.
Long-term investing. Consistent, steady investing over time.
It's almost anticlimactic compared to the others, isn't it?
It is, and that raises a big question. Why do we, as a society, seem to misunderstand these odds so badly? Why are we so drawn to the long shots?
Good question. It's not just bad math, right?
No, I don't think so. Part of it is probably those cognitive biases we hear about, like the availability heuristic.
Meaning we remember the things we see easily.
Right. We see the lottery winner, the huge YouTuber, the sports, they get all the media attention. So those examples are readily available in our minds, making them seem way more common than they actually are.
And we don't see the millions who didn't win the lottery or make it big.
Exactly. That's survivor bias. We only focus on the winners, the survivors, and ignore the vast majority who tried and failed. Society tends to glorify the outlier, the exception.
Creates a narrative around the long shot.
Yeah, these aspirational stories. But the numbers tell a different story about the most probable ways to build success or wealth. It forces you to think critically, what does success really mean to you?
And are you pursuing it in a way that aligns with realistic probabilities? Are you buying lottery tickets with your time and energy? Or are you making smarter, higher probability bets?
It's a crucial self-assessment.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
This whole segment is really about critical thinking for you, the listener.
Mhm.
How do these numbers stack up against your assumptions about success?
Mhm.
Are you putting your effort into areas with a decent shot? Or are you maybe seduced by the glamour of those low probability fields?
It's not about crushing dreams, but about making informed choices.
Right. Using this kind of information to guide your decisions about your career, your life path, maybe steering towards strategies that have a better chance of actually getting you where you want to go, or perhaps even redefining what a successful path looks like for you personally.
Yeah, maybe success isn't just the home run, but the consistent base hits over time.
Well said. And just like that, we've covered a lot of ground.
We really have.
From that intense personal journey of the innovator feeling alone with early AI,
To the discipline needed in that crazy boom pot poker game.
and then zooming out to the cold, hard probabilities of life and career success. What a ride through these sources.
It's fascinating how they connect. We've seen that whether you're playing cards or planning your life, really understanding your situation, knowing how to use your resources
And making disciplined, smart decisions.
is absolutely key. Whether it's embracing the loneliness of being first, making those small, smart bets in a crowded field, or just understanding the real odds.
It seems success isn't just about the cards you get dealt.
Not at all. It's much more about how wisely, how strategically you decide to play them.
So let's leave you with a final thought to chew on.
Okay.
Maybe the biggest gamble isn't about the specific hand you're holding right now, but about your whole approach, your mix of ambition, strategy, and whether you truly grasp the real probabilities in life.
Are you playing the long game, making those high probability bets? Or are you chasing that illusion of a quick, flashy win?
Think about it. What hands are you holding right now, your skills, resources, opportunities? And how are you choosing to play them to build real long-term success?
Welcome. I have a poker lesson that starts shortly. I only have a couple of minutes to talk with you before that. I would like to recommend to you my Stoic book. This is the French version of my Stoic book. I have written it in French and I have translated it into English. And I'm going to give you the QR code. The link is in the description. But if you want just to scan the code on screen, then you can do that. Here you get the French version if you scan that code. And if you scan this code, you have to pause. You have to press pause. If you scan this code, you get the English version. That is the good news, that you can get my fourth book and that's edited. The bad news is that I still didn't have the time to translate it into German. There's some more good news and bad news. The good news is that I have written a lot and I should be able to publish a fifth book, but I have to do the design for the cover and I have to publish it. And that's much more work than you actually think. There will be a time where my AI agent will be able to do that, but now he is not. And since he's not, I have to do all the work myself. And this morning I spent some time working on a passage in my book and I finalized that passage. But while I was doing that, some new ideas came for two more passages. And I have already written the draft, but now I have to work on it and polish it and then proofread it and all that stuff until I can finally put it in my book. So I still produce. And there's a moment where you have to publish, because if you have produced more than 350 pages, well, a book, you cannot put an infinite amount of pages in a book. You have to produce, and it's a good thing because you won't lose what you have written. If you don't publish, well, then you could lose the file and it would be forgotten forever. If I lose access, I have a backup, but the backup only happens from time to time. There's always a risk of you losing data. And if you don't publish, well, then you might lose it forever. It's just a huge amount of work, especially if I still keep producing. It never ends. And I have to do all that by myself. I'm complaining because I work 17 hours a day. It's not that I'm complaining. You must understand, I like being passionate about what I do, but it's a huge amount of work. And if I look around me, all the people who have written books or done anything, they just do one thing, one simple thing. And I have to do all that on my own and I get no help except from an agent. But he's really dumb. I just asked him to do something for me and he took 20 minutes just to check the internet. It's very painful to watch him. Now he does some work. It's better than nothing. But when you have to watch him lose 20 minutes just to check the internet, you get mad. It's really painful to watch. And I know that in 6 months it will be better. In 2 years it will be much better. But I'm living now and I'm old now and I need a lot of assistance and I don't get it. You tell me easy, just pay 50, 100K, 200K, 500,000. I don't have that kind of money to spend on something that will never make me any money, never any real money. I'm not a celebrity. Who will buy my book? Since that's the case, I have to do 100% of the work myself. I woke up 5 o'clock in the morning. Now it's 4 o'clock in the evening. I didn't stop working. I didn't stop. I was working 100% nonstop. It's the last day of sun and I want to go outside because for the rest of the week, we will just have bad weather. And I cannot even because I have so much work. And now I have to see my poker teacher and talk about some probabilities. Normally you get burnout. The way I don't get burnout is by doing different stuff, like playing the piano and so on, not just focusing on one. If I would only write, I would have very fast burnout. If I only trade the markets, I would get a burnout. If I only publish videos on YouTube, I will get a burnout. But if you jump from one thing to another and you do just what you're most passionate about, 24 hours is never enough. I published a video about life extension. I need a lot of life extension, and not just life extension. I need an army of people working for me just to do a little part of what I would like to do. Unfortunately, it's not possible. The only thing that will give me that is AI once agents get good enough. But that will be the case maybe in 2 or 5 years. I'm not that old. Maybe I see that I can wait long. But still, for me, during my entire childhood, I couldn't even ask AI one single question. I ask hundreds of questions every day, AI. I never stop learning. I never stop creating. I never stop thinking. And during my entire childhood, I had nothing. The only thing I had was status propaganda. Somebody learned something very hard. He barely understands it, and now he talks about it. And that gets really on your nerves. That's the only thing I had during my childhood. Anyways, not everything is bad. I'm still alive, and I do my best. Let's see what my poker teacher is up to.
Well, here we are. How would you like today's meeting to go?
Well, you will have to do more work in the future, Norman, because they changed my sit and go. And I have now a sit and go, which is called Boom Pot. And a couple of times during the tournament, they make me play every hand. And when they do that, it messes the recording up. And then some hands disappear. The last time I marked 3 hands, I could only find 1 out of 3. And I had 3 hands marked. The other didn't show up. And just an issue with the recording. Since they changed the format with the boom pot is just a pot where you have to put 1 or 2 big blinds on the table and play the hand even if you have the most crappy hand imaginable. And since they did that, it messes everything up, and now it's very hard to record hands. I record them when I see them, but then I look for them in Poker Tracker and I cannot find them. Most hands I don't have any question, and then when I have a question about a hand, well, it disappears. That's very annoying. I won't be able to mark too many hands. This week, I think I only have 1 hand marked, and we can look at that, but for the rest, you have to come up with what we do. We can do some probabilities, some logic, whatever you want.
I have some ideas actually from a few weeks ago I wanted to do with you. That's not a problem. In general, have you considered looking at any other poker sites available on your country? I know you like the pod odds it offers there, but maybe all the other features would be convenient somewhere else. What is?
No, man, I'm not good at poker. If I can see my pot out and my outs, I can make the thing, but I need to be sure. And for me, it's very nice to see that suddenly I have 9 outs or a little more. I like to confirm by looking at it. And that's the only site who allows me to do that.
Here's one detail with it. I think most people aren't too good with that. There's a lot of poker players who haven't even heard of those things. In a way, just as it's a benefit for you, it's to all the other players in your tournaments as well. I think all the players there have this visible.
Yes, they can all use it. But that doesn't matter to me. I want to play decent. I don't care about what the other players do.
All right. Well, one other question is about those boom bots. How comfortable do you feel in them right now? And would you like to talk some strategy with them?
Sometimes you get lucky and you get 2 pairs. And then if everybody did put 2 big blinds on the table, the pot is already huge. That's nice. But most of the time you just have to fold. It's a tax. It shouldn't be too bad because sometimes it turns in your favor, a lot of times it doesn't. But it should equal out, I hope, over time. I'm not even sure if that is the case since there are 8 people around the table. And if 8 people have to see a pot and pay 2 big blinds, well, it is handicapping for me because I would have never played that hand. But for everybody else, I think it doesn't really change anything. It just makes the tournament probably shorter. What do you think?
Well, it does make the tournament shorter. You are correct about that. It just introduces a new element to it. It's not necessarily good or bad, but it can be challenging if you're not used to being in these scenarios. If I understand correctly how it works, then it goes straight to the flop. You cannot bet pre-flop. Is that correct?
That's correct. You see the flop, straight to flop. And you decide what you do on the flop.
Well, main tips I would give is before that, could it happen when there's 2 or 3 players left, or does it only happen early in a tournament?
Correct. It happens every time, even heads up. It happens from time to time.
Roughly, if you play out one tournament all the way until the end, does it happen 4 times, 5 times per one tournament? How frequent is it? Every 10 minutes?
Around that, around 4 or 5 times.
All right. I would say early on, when there's still 8 or 7 players on the table, you certainly want to be very cautious if you're going first or one of the first people on the flop. Even if you have a good hand, there's still 5 or 6 players who haven't had a chance to do something on the flop yet. I think position matters a lot. For example, if you're on the dealer button and you see 6 players, no one wants to bet, and you have a good top pair, maybe it is good enough to go for a bet then. Because you saw all 6, nobody bet. So even with so many opponents, decent chance your top pair could be good there. But if you were to go first, let's say you're small blind or big blind, and you have that same hand there, now it would be way more risky to bet it because any of the next players could already have 2 pair or better and be waiting to raise or go. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Another thing that's decently good there is to do a very small bet if you have anything that has any interest on the flop. The reason for that is that, again, it's very dangerous to do big bets. Even though you get more folds, someone could have 7-2 and have 2 pair or 3 of a kind. There's all sorts of dangers in these scenarios. But the benefit of a small bet is to limit the field, that if you go to the turn or the river, there would be less players there, which in theory will improve your chances if you get, for example, half of the players to fold. And that you could try sometimes, even if you have second pair, third pair, just a draw, a weaker type of hand. Does that make some sense?
Understand. But then you want me to bet only one big blind.
Well, maybe 2, but I bet less than half pot. I bet that's around quarter of the pot. 1 big blind bet, that you could also do. Even that will probably generate some folds, although you should only do it if you have some chances of winning the pot. You'd at least need some outs. Sometimes you could have 7-2 and the board has no 7, no 2, draw and all this stuff, then wouldn't even be point there. I would say these normal things like a half pot bet, like these normal bet sizes you use, these are quite risky to use because let's say you have a 10 and 10 is top pair and you go for a half pot bet, you still probably will get 2-3 players that won't fold, even if you bet half pot. And then on any turn, now it's almost any card will be scary. Because with so many opponents, you never know when they can make 2 pair, when they could make a straight, because they have any hand at that point. I would be cautious with investing too much with hands that have to slow down on many turn cards. You don't want to make a big bet on the flop and then a king comes on the turn and now you already have to fold. I think that's a little bit of common sense as well, but you won't get 7 or 6 players all to fold. Basically that. You have to be, well, for one, more honest, and secondly, more cautious with the bets and not try much to make too big of a bet. If you're very confident, then maybe an all-in is a good move. That could make a lot of people fold if you feel like you have a strong enough hand to do it. But these medium good hands, I think the most common mistake people do multi-way is they still think the same way as they would with 1 or 2 opponents. They still think second pair is pretty good or these sorts of ways. But with so many opponents, now top pair is like second pair would be normally. Or a weak flush draw will be like a straight, like everything is what example I would bring. Like if you have a very nice country house, but you now put that house in Beverly Hills, where all the movie stars live, then suddenly that might be the ugliest house. If you put it in a normal neighborhood, that might be the nicest house. This multi-way thing has that effect that just because you have ace 10 and flop has a 10 and lower cards, doesn't mean you want to be too forceful with that hand. That could easily get quite costly. But you could do a smaller bet, get some people to fold, and then I would also look at if you see other people not want to bet, that's very helpful. The later on your action is on the dealer button or cutoff, the safer it is. If you've already seen that 5 people decided not to bet or something like that. To go first, very dangerous. If you're small blind, then you bet first and 6 players there, then that's extremely risky.
Okay, for the small bet, if half pot is too much, maybe I go for 2 big blinds in that case.
It's a bit of trial and error to find that size, but the main purpose of a small bet is just to get people with very weak hands to fold. Because even if someone has pocket twos, they can always hit a 2 and make a 3 of a kind. Even if someone has ace 4 off and there's no ace on the board, they could always hit an ace on the turn. That small bet, it's not to put any real pressure on a pair or a flush draw or a straight draw, like these strong hands, which won't be folding anyway. It's just to fold out people with ace high, pocket twos, just some random cards, which will make the life a bit easier on the next card. And depending on what you have, it might help you that maybe you have an okay hand, but not a great hand. You have a hand that wouldn't want to face a big bet. Sometimes making a small bet yourself will hold the other people back from making a big bet. Often people go with the initiative or go what's on the table. If no one had bet, they would think, well, I want to bet, and then they would think how much, and maybe they would go for a bigger bet than your 2 big blinds. But once you already bet, people might settle with that, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. If I have a 10 and it is top pair, and the other card is maybe a 4 and a 2, should I go for 2 big blinds just to make the weekend 4? Or should I go for 2/3 of a pot? Not half pot, but 2/3 of a pot. What do you think is more appropriate? And I'm in the situation where I still have 7 other players. What should I do?
In general, I would like the smaller bet more. If you want to go more, then I would already be thinking, is it possible for you to go all in there? And sometimes if everyone puts 2 big blinds, the pot could be 16 big blinds, 2 times 8. Pot's already 16, and let's say everyone just started the hand with 25 big blinds, then you have a little bit more than pot size left. And if you bet 2/3, you would be betting 12 out of your 25. And then if a turn is a bad card, it could leave some awkward decisions there, which could be that you would fold then possibly on the turn or the river. I would more like a smaller bet, see what happens, see if there's any big resistance, see how many players fold, and then hopefully you get a safe turn. Hopefully the turn is another 10 would be the best, but hopefully it's a 9, an 8, a 7, a 6. There's some better cards that can come on the turn. And then if it's still quite slow, then I would feel more confident to go for that bigger bet or all in or something like that. It's just that, well, you could go 2/3 on the flop, but it won't end the hand there. If someone had a straight draw, which they could, you said, I think 10-4-2, someone with 3-5, a very random hand, but a 3-5 would have a straight draw. That player very unlikely to fold. Now, if the turn's an ace, a 6, you would lose a very big pot, and that player won't fold. Someone might not fold if they have another 10, like they have 10-7. And now a 7 is a danger card on the turn. Someone could also have pocket aces or jacks. I mean, we cannot forget that because pre-flop went so quickly. Just like everyone can have 3-5, everyone can also have aces. And if you have a pair of 10, then someone could have, what hands beat you there? Aces, kings, queens, jacks. Also 10-3, 10 or 10-4, 10-2. 4-2 for 2 pair, Also pocket twos, pocket fours. There's stuff that already beats you. Then there's good hands that won't fold, like the straight draws, other 10. Someone might call with a 4 or a 2 if they're loose. I would be hesitant. It's a big statement to go 2/3. Pot's so big, right? Pot's already 16 big blinds, and you go 2/3. That's a considerable investment there. And how much safety does it really bring? I would say, in my experience, you still get 3 players to call out of 8. And now you're in a massive pot. Pot's like 40, 50 big blind. Someone will go all in on the turn, and then it can be very tricky. I would be hesitant to make a move like that, and with just one pair. I would say one pair is quite a vulnerable hand in that scenario.
Okay, great. The only issue is that it's not always 2 big blinds. Sometimes you only have to put 1 big blind on the table. Then it's a little smaller, but it's still a big pot in general. I get the idea. I have to be very prudent because of the number of my opponents. But when there are less opponents left,
then it's more normal. Yes, with 3 players, it's more normal, and 4 also, yes.
Exactly. Okay, great. Thanks for talking that through. Now, what do we do?
I think let's start with that one hand, and then I'll screen share and show you some of the stuff I've been waiting for a few weeks to show you.
I don't think it will be very long, because maybe you have nothing to say and I did everything correctly. Just a hand I wanted to check. Between the hands I wanted to mark, that was not the most interesting one, but it's the only one I could mark. I have pocket 4, I'm on the big blind, small blind, who is limping, and I actually wanted to win the pot right here. I go for 5x, which makes 6 big blinds, and now he goes all in. What do you think, and what do you recommend?
Now it's quite an ugly scenario. I think I would fold at this moment. What I would have done different, I'm not sure I would have raised to 6. I think I would have rather raised smaller or bigger. Actually, I think most commonly here I would have just gone all in. Now, why would I go all in? Because really, anything he has is as good as 4s almost. He might have Queen 10. That's a 45% winning chance against 4s. He might have A6, or even if he has a hand like 10-7, if he has 2 cards higher than a 4, which most often he has, unless he has a 2-3 or a 4. If he has King 5, Queen 7, all these hands are essentially as strong as 4s. Now the good news is, even a hand like Ace King, Ace Queen is also as good as 4s. So 4s is a very resilient hand. It's something that's never a big favorite, almost never a big favorite, but it's very rarely a big underdog. It's usually in these 50-50 scenarios. And the best thing that can happen, I think, in these cases is to make the other player fold. And if they don't fold, let's say they have Ace King, Ace Queen, well, good news is you still have a pretty strong hand in an all. But now the question is how to make them fold. And in my view, if you raise 6, even though it's scary and good, I don't think it really folds out any of the hands that are like likable. I don't think he will fold 2 cards with a picture on it. I don't think he'll fold an ace, or even a hand like 8-7 of hearts, which looks nice, might not fold. If he doesn't fold, now it's very tough for you on the flop, because there will likely be higher cards than a 4. And then if he connects, you could lose the hand if he hits his 10 or an ace or something. I like the all-in because I think now he might start to fold. He's currently 5th place. He has pretty good chances to make top 3. But if he loses all-in, then all is over. I think it would put a lot of pressure on him, where he might even fold a hand like King 10 or Queen Jack or Ace 7, and all that would be great. I think that would cause a lot of fold. Alternatively, I guess I could see myself raising, like if you really want to fold out a nothing hand, like a very weak hand, like if he's limping 7-5 or if he's limping 10-6, then I think 6 big blinds is not required. That I think you could make him fold raising to 3 or 4 big blinds. But in this case, I would just leverage the fact that you're a chip leader, you're not risking as much as he's risking. And pocket fours is a pretty good hand for an all-in. If you look at your heads-up ranges, pocket fours can go all in for 20 big blinds. I think that would be the easiest and nicest way to play fours. Does that make some sense?
You want me to make an all-in, but if he has anything good, it's a gamble. In best case scenario, I'm close to 50% to make it. Normally, you don't want me to gamble. And here you make an exception because I have 44 big blinds and I'm the chip leader. I nearly have to double than he has.
You're right that usually I wouldn't want you to enter a gamble. One is that you're a chip leader. What are the other reasons?
Only limit.
Exactly. That's already makes it less likely for him to have a good hand. And through all that, I'm expecting quite a lot of folds. And the funny thing here, if he folds, let's say 5 or 6 times in a row, and then 7th time he calls you. Well, if 5 or 6 times in a row you win the pot, that's in the middle, then the pot's 2.75. If you win it twice, then you win 5.5. You win it 4 times, you won 11 big blinds. If you won it 6 times, then you won 16.5. If he folds 5-6 times in a row, which I think he will at this point, then essentially you would win as much as you would be risking in an all-in. I think that's why it's quite a safe move, that I don't think he will call you more often than 1 in 6 or 7 times. You will just win this pot quite often that way.
I understand. And we assume that he is weak because he only limit. But there's always a chance that he has pocket aces and he didn't want to make me fold. And now that he sees that I put 6 on the table, he's all happy and he says, great, I'm going to win a huge book with my pocket aces. Let's go all in. I know that that is an exception. Normally, that shouldn't happen. That's why I can do my all-in.
Yes, exactly.
How he played, I'm not excluding the possibility that he has pocket aces or pocket kings or pocket queens or pocket jacks, but I'm not excluding that he has a very good hand. And even if he has only pocket sevens or pocket nines, then it's still a better hand than what I have. Now that he goes all in, I'm putting him on a very strong hand. That's only because I know what he did. Until I see him going all in, I have to assume that he has something like...
Well, almost anything, I would think. He only put half a big blind there.
Correct. But if I want to put a name, a Jack 9 offsuit maybe. Maybe that would be his average. What do you think?
I think that's a decent... I like that answer, actually. I think that's pretty good. And you're a 55% favorite against Jack not off, but it's very likely it would fold. I think that's very nice to push it to fold. Sort of did that through 6 big blinds. You pushed it for a fold. I just would have put even more pressure than that. Now, the benefit of your play is you gave yourself a way to walk away if he did what he did this time. But the downside is there's more of a chance he won't fold because it's not pressuring him for everything. It's less pressure than it would have been if to raise all in.
But if I'm concluding on what you teach me, I should think that when I'm a huge sheep leader like I'm right now, that I can enter more gamble situation than normally and put more pressure on my opponents than I normally do.
Exactly, that is true, because you still don't want to gamble, but your opponents should want to gamble even less than you do. That's the thing there.
I agree with what you say, but my opponent should gamble even less than I do. That's correct, if they are smart, but I'm not sure that at the level I play, I have a lot of smart opponents. That's the issue with that train of thought. But it's still good to play the best way you can, because there will be a day where I'll jump to the next level and the next level and the next level, and then I will have more smart opponents. And then it's good if I play correctly instantly.
Well, yes, sometimes you played this tournament,
Look,
maybe you noticed.
Let's say I have pocket tens. I go for 1 big blind, and now the big blind goes all in. My pocket tens. I would hesitate to play my pocket tens because he just went all in. And I tell myself, if he has jacks, kings, queens, and aces, I'm not so good. Maybe I would even fold my pocket tens. But that's me because I have some experience and I try to get better every week. But would he fold pocket tens if I go all in? I don't think he would. Man, maybe you tell me he should not. So that's the issue. Not everybody respects an all in at the level where I play.
Well, what you say is very true. I wouldn't expect him to fold tens. What is to your advantage is that, let's say he could have any random hand, then the chances of being dealt a pocket pair is around 6.25%, if I remember. Something like that. Might have been 6.3%. Around 6%. And some of the pocket pairs are deuces and threes. Very roughly speaking, there's around 5% chance out of a random hand, 1 in 20 chance out of a random hand, that it's a better pocket pair than fours. And if he had a better pocket pair than fours, I expect that hand quite often to raise in the small blind if he had sevens, if he had jacks, if he had kings. That might even make it less likely than 1 in 20. That would give me that mathematical comfort that it's only 1 in 20 for him to have a pocket pair higher than fours out of a random hand.
I think we can stop talking about it. It's just,
How can play out?
I will show you.
Call?
Look, he goes all in, but would you go all in with pocket sevens? If you are player 3, would you go all in with pocket sevens? When I put 6 big blinds on the table, would you go all in with pocket sevens?
Well, I wouldn't feel too good about it, so probably not.
I have enough crazy people who would. That's the difference. When I look at my opponents, there are enough crazy people who would. And pocket sevens, yes, if he knew that I have pocket fours, he should go all in, but he has no idea. And I'm representing a lot of strength. I think he should fold. My point is just that sometimes it's very hard to make them fold, even when they have crappy hands, because they're not so good players. But as I told you, I have to think about my future, and I cannot play crappy just because I'm facing crappy people. I like your all in because I can afford the gamble. Thank you for teaching me that. How do you think the hand ended?
You might have folded, although I would say once you raise 6, then it's a bit tough to fold, because if you look at pot odds, now you should call if you can win it 1 in 3 times. And now it's a bit close. I think either option is okay here, but I hope at least you were prudent and made the fold.
You told me that you would have folded.
Well, yes, I don't think it's fantastic. You're asked, can you win this 1 in 3 times? And probably it's close to that. It's probably not going to be too much better than that. Then if it's close to 1 in 3, why gamble for it then? I think it's good for you to maintain the position with 39 here. You're maintaining your chip lead. If you gamble and lose it, then you would be similar stack to player 2. Player 3, I think, would be chip leader. But it's just a big fold to make, right? After you already made 6, pot's 24, the reward is now double as much. But he has shown a lot of strength. He went 3 times your raise of 6. That's quite scary. That looks stronger than 4. I do think you folded. I hope at least.
You're correct, Domin. Okay, great. Thank you for discussing this hand in depth. It was interesting. After all, it wasn't a bad hand. I thought you would just say it's all right and we don't have to talk about it.
A little bit of theory now, if you're ready for it. Not too much math, just looking at some charts, which I know if someone likes looking at charts, it's Titus Adiodatus, a fan of charts and indicators. Now we're going to look at some poker charts and hopefully you will enjoy it. We'll see. I don't think it will be something super new for you. It's just the scenarios that we're going to look is a little bit new. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Great.
Did you receive my out?
Yes, right.
Maybe you can call it out. What I'm talking about. The probability of becoming wealthy, of making money in a different activity that people like sports, literature, YouTube, all those dream jobs everybody wants and hopes he can make it. And the odds actually of making it are very small in everything. Not so bad as playing the lotto, but they're still bad. What do you think about them? I just wanted your feedback on that, since you're somebody who knows a lot about probabilities. If you allow me.
I think in one way it would be good if everyone knew them. I guess I'll start a little different than your question. You shared the prices of slaves. I would do a quick comment on that I knew they were expensive, but I didn't know they're quite so expensive.
It's surprising. Yeah, the extremes could be very high. And even the median price that most people had to pay most of the time is still extremely high. It really was something for the extreme elite. It's like having a garage with Aston Martins, Porsches, and the latest car, and every car is above 250K. There are people who have that, but not a lot of people. Slave ownership was that. It was for the elite. The common man with 18K a year could never afford a slave. But that's important because they don't teach you that in school. I had to do a lot of research to understand that.
I think in history, we always learn like the big things. I think in school, you get the impression that every white man had like 5 slaves or something like that. Whereas it's maybe in future in history, they will talk about something like private planes or yachts in a similar way. Those big ships that people owned, like their own private planes, were actually only extremely wealthy have a private plane or a boat.
Now, on that subject, I didn't ask a statistic, but there were a lot of very wealthy in Rome. I don't know how many, if it's 200 or a little more, but 200 it could have been. There were a lot of wealthy families, and some of them had an immense amount of slaves, like an army of slaves. And the average of those wealthy families still had 25 slaves. But it's still a very small group. It's like if you take the Senate, or maybe a little more than the Senate. It's like if you take billionaires and you say there are 700 billionaires. And if all those billionaires live in the same city, well, then you have a lot of slave masters and a lot of slaves working around all day long. But still, the average citizen could never afford a slave. That's just the thing people don't get. I like it that you find it interesting because I found it very interesting. But I'm more interested in your opinion about the probabilities of becoming wealthy under the system we live in and the numbers I have given to you. If you have them and you can talk about them, it's great.
I think 1 in 30,000 for sports, then for music and stuff like that, it was 1 in 100,000 or even more. These were quite low numbers, essentially, that it's very rare for someone to be a professional sportsman, essentially.
The numbers were: lottery is 1 in 28 millions. Celebrity fame, YouTube and so on, is 1 in 4.7 millions. And if you're not celebrity fame, well, then you never make real money on YouTube. Pro sport, I think poker is a pro sport for professional. It's just you don't use your body, but you use your intellect. But it's still a pro sport. And that's 1 in 31,000. And entrepreneurship, becoming Bill Gates, is 1 in 2,000. There could be more that survive, but really making money is 1 in 2,000. That looks a little better already, but I doubt this number because I think it's much lower than that. The becoming wealthy with anything like Intel, Nokia, or anything like that, I think it's much lower than 1 in 2,000. That number to me is very skeptical. I don't trust it. And then we have long-term investment, which if you do it over decades gives the best chances of making money. What do you think about the numbers? I have them under my eyes so we can talk about them.
Interesting that the thing that seems the most boring and the least chance of overnight success. In a way, if I look at that chart, the longer time it takes, the more likely it is. If you take a ticket, that's something that you don't have to do anything. You can buy it today and be rich tomorrow. But that is the least likely, which takes the least effort. And then sports is more likely than some of the others, because with sports, even if it's 1 in 30,000, you still have to work many years to be a successful athlete. It's not something like you wake up today and you're going to be a pro swimmer or chess player or poker player. So that's also makes it more likely. But even with sports, yes, some people could just a few years could make it. But something like investing always, I think, takes decades and very long time. And that's actually the most likely. So I think that's one interesting thing.
That's very, very good. I approve 100% about that. And now that I think people want to get rich quick. And as long as they have that mentality, they never make it. because then you're in the worst situation possible. Then you have one chance in 28 millions. But if you have more patience, then you can make it. The chances of making it are better. Now, the problem with entrepreneurship is that it is 1 in 2000. But I think if you really want to succeed, you have to have a lot of capital to start with. If you have a lot of capital, you qualify for entering that sphere. I think you should have, I want to say 50 millions, but even 50 millions, I'm not sure. I think to get a really chance of making a lot of money with entrepreneurship, I think you should have like 100 million. And then you have one chance if you bet on the right horse and what you do makes a lot of sense and you never give up, because even then it will be really hard. But then you have one chance to make the new Tesla or something else out of 2000. Now I agree with it. If you have a huge capital to start with, but if not, you never qualify for entrepreneurship, in my opinion. Because even small things like a restaurant, a bakery, they easily have invested in it 500K or 1 million or 5 million. Even a small thing, you think it's nothing. You pay $2 or $3 for what they do. And you don't think it's anything special. But you would be astounded on how much money is actually invested in something like that. Entrepreneurship, you can only qualify, and here we're not interested in making small money. We're not interested in just making 5, 6, or 8% a year, because that will never make you rich. We're interested in making real money, like Schumacher did with Formula 1 and some other celebrities. But if you want to have that, you should have 100 million, and you should have an excellent idea, but really something revolutionary, and you should be able to deliver that to the market faster than everybody else. And that's very hard. You don't know how much pressure that is to accomplish that. 1 in 2000, yes. If you have 100 million to start with, then I agree with it. But if not, it's out of reach. You can never play that game. That's just the thing. And the other point you pointed out is perfect, and it's really important, and that people don't want to hear. The faster you can make money, the lower the chances are of ever making money. It's only if you have a lot of dedication and you never give up over decades that you can succeed. The thing with long-term investing is if you understand the strategy and you never give up and it makes all sense, it's all correct on every fundamental, technical, and so on, then you have a chance of, if not becoming extremely rich, at least really improving your financial situation. That's why investing is so good. But you had to say much more about that. Sorry for interrupting you. I'm very interested in what you say.
Oh, no. I think good summary and also good points you bring up. What else did I want to say? Yes, that with sports, I think most people come to poker quite late, but in most normal sports, which are, I guess, most sports, actually, people who are successful started very young. It's that same effect, that very long time in doing something, right? If most chess players also start when they're 5, 6, 7 years old. In that way, poker is a unique one because it's illegal to play for money in most of the world, and most people start it when they're grown-ups, that it's one of the few avenues that it is possible to start and progress in as an adult. In most other things, like if we take tennis, for example, it's tough to catch up to someone who's played tennis since they're 10 years old. And for physical things, there's like a specific time where people are in their peak fitness. I think snooker is one sport where I think of where it's like a version of pool where there's been world champions who are 50, maybe even 60 years old. I guess it's not completely physical. It's not like running or tennis. Well, it's a pool game, so that's why people can play it longer. What's great about poker is there's been successful poker players who are 80 years old. That's nice about it, if someone keeps their mind sharp. But the overall odds are not good. I think it would be good if more people would be aware of these things. To be more realistic, I think would be helpful. On the other hand, I think even not succeeding in something can have a positive impact. I think that shouldn't be forgotten. I've done many sports in my life or activities or studied computer science, even though I didn't become a computer programmer. There's many things that happen in life, and not every project will be successful. I think a lot of children go play football or tennis or basketball or volleyball or do gymnastics, or most kids do something like that, and 29,999 of them won't ever have any success with that in professional level or won't become Michael Schumacher, but I still think it's a good impact on their lives. As I said, I'm still interested in sports, in learning about music, and developing in all these areas. Other than playing lottery, maybe isn't very interesting for me. Although if someone did it a little bit of, then I don't think it's the worst thing to spend $10 a month on lottery or something. But it's not something I'm particularly interested in. But I do see a lot of value in self-improvement in these things in that list. I think it's worthwhile to make YouTube videos or to do sports or to start some sort of a business, even if it's unlikely to succeed. I think all of these experiences usually can be helpful if done correctly.
I have a little caveat to add. You must know that money is a scarce resource. And when your odds of making it are extremely low, you need huge conviction to agree to it, because it's a real gamble. It's worse than a real gamble. You need real conviction behind it. I'm not saying if there's a chance that you make it, why not risk it? And maybe you become a billionaire or a trillionaire. But if not, you should be very skeptical, because it's a scarce resource. And if you blow up, then you are out of the game. It's over and you'll never make it back. But that's the issue with that. That's the one thing. And the other thing I wanted to mention is with the laws that are in place and that more or less every country agrees on. I do not agree with those laws, once again, and we can talk about it. But I would never ban my kids from playing poker or taking position in the markets. I would actually like it a lot that they take position in the market and learn how to play poker while they are still young, because I'm sure that they will learn much faster. And if they blow up and make a mistake, what do they risk? The pocket money I give them. What is that? Maybe $50 a month? Well, if they lose that, that's nothing. It's not a big deal. It's much better that they make mistakes while they're young than that they make the same mistakes when they suddenly have 50K or 500K or 5 million. Then the mistake will be costly. But as long as you're young and you're happy because you managed to transform your 50 USD, your pocket money, into 150 USD, well, that's awesome. And then you realize that it doesn't work always, and that after making 150 USD, you lose it all. That's a very good experience. I would never go against it. Now, what I don't like them to do is stuff where they cannot succeed, like the roulette. I don't want to see them playing the roulette, because there you never have more than 50% chance of winning. It's only the house that wins. I don't want to play in games where you cannot win, even if you're smart. That's a waste of time. I agree to ban those kind of games. But other games where you can have an edge and make real money, I don't think you should ban them. What do you think about that?
I think if I have kids, I would want to also teach them poker. In general, I think all these things can be done comfortably. The only worry is, I guess, the society doesn't want kids to be forced into work too early. What if the kid is successful at it and then the parents pressure the kid to trade for the benefit of the family or something like that and take away the kid's child? But until there's freedom for the kid to do that or do other stuff, then I think it's good, and I think it helps to learn these things early on. I raised my finger a moment ago. I had something I wanted to comment on. Now it doesn't come to my mind.
Sometimes we agree that the slave master doesn't always take the most smart decision, and that actually it wouldn't be the worst situation possible if everybody could choose what he does. And if you want to teach your kids poker, then why not? And stealing their childhood, there are a lot of people who steal the childhood of the children because they know nothing about education, they know nothing about psychology, and they're just very bad parents. The only thing we can do is teach them how to become better parents. And until you do that and they want to learn, well, what do? I don't think it's a good idea if the government takes the kids away always, because the government isn't very concerned about a kid. But fortune is very hard because it doesn't give good parents to everybody. Kids have to survive that period and grow up and hope that the rest of their life will be better. But I don't think that a law makes everything good. It's just the reminder that a free society isn't the worst idea. There's responsibility. A woman should not choose a man who would be a bad dad for her kids. She should have been smart and thought about with whom she has kids. There's responsibility, and yes, it is bad if the kids suffer because their parents did take bad decisions. But that's not something we can stop from one day to another. There's not a law or an article that will take that away. Human stupidity will only change when people get more educated, have more free time, and want to study and want to become better people. But until that happens, a lot of people will act illogically and make everybody suffer. Because either they're not smart, but that I don't think is the worst. I think most of the time they have low emotional quotient. They have a low EQ. Because they cannot manage their emotions, they start behaving in an illogical manner. But there's nothing we can do about that. That's how fortune goes. I've listened to somebody who talks about the tall girl syndrome. It's a metaphor. It's a girl who is already very tall and she wants only to date men that are even taller than she is. And because of that, well, she will probably never find anybody who qualifies. And the idea is that in our society, women get emancipated, they have careers that are just as good as men, they get the tall girl syndrome. They want somebody who is just as good as they are, no, probably even better than they are. And that makes it very hard to find somebody. Sorry for making that parenthesis. I don't even know why I talked about it. Can you remind me why I talked about the tall girl syndrome? It's an illogical way of thinking, but it makes a lot of sense for a woman. Because she wants the alpha male and the best genetical material for her kids. If the guy she's with is tall, fit, wealthy, then she thinks that it is the best chance for her offspring. And that's why she's picky. It is an immense challenge nowadays because they go on Tinder and suddenly they have 10,000 guys they can choose. And they're not interested in most of them. There's only 1% they might take a look at. And that 1% is the guy who gets all the girls. He wouldn't be available. He will not chat with her and he will not meet her. And even if he does, well, his mentality will be, I can change them every night if I want. I'm so successful that I can change them every night. He will probably be not too inclined in choosing one because he has so much choice. That's the issue, is that they're extremely picky. It makes very little sense. In the past, they wanted the alpha male, but they also had to survive. And because survival was better with a husband, they would be logical and choose one. But nowadays, they have huge expectations. And when you ask him what they bring to the table, well, sometimes it's not much, but you get the idea. The tall syndrome, to me, is an illogical way of looking, but it makes a lot of sense for a girl. You cannot change human nature. She could become philosophical and take a different decision, but most don't.
I'm not really very interested in these kinds of topics, which there isn't anything to do about. It's everyone's personal choice. And if I complain about what women are like, that's not going to help me or help them or change anything. I really kind of try to see the world only as it is and my opportunities in it. If something's the case, it doesn't really matter if I like it or don't like it in this way. It's just as a fact.
I agree with what you say. There's things we cannot change. They're beyond our control. And you're totally correct that. And it's a stoic point of view to not waste time with that kind of stuff. But the idea for me was just to look at society and make an analysis. The idea is you have that beautiful girl in a bar and she's looking for somebody because they always are. They always want to find love. And there are 5 or 10 decent people who come up to her and try to engage with her, but she rejects them all. And she will end up lonely because the guy she dreams about and she wants, well, he cannot be found. And if she finds him, there's a good chance he might not be interested. It's just a thought. And when you do that a lot, and a lot of girls think like this nowadays because they are emancipated, well, then it is natural that demography drops a lot. And to me, it's important to notice this, even if we cannot change it. But I agree, we shouldn't waste time with it. Get back to the thing you wanted to talk about. And then if we still have some time, I would really like that you show me what you wanted.
I remember what I wanted to say before, which was that even though these things are unlikely on that list, they're still possible if we compare it to a normal career where someone works an office job or does any of the normal, whether they're work in a shop or a garbage man or a plumber. Even though these things bring stability, for any success, you still have to be an entrepreneur at the end of it and start your own business. As long as you're in an IT company or in a shop or as a garbage man or a plumber, it's very unlikely you would have any sort of great success then. That's one reason. Another reason is the freedom, that there's more freedom in some way to choose what you do as an athlete or as a musician or an author or a business owner or all this, or an investor. I guess that's what I like about these unconventional career paths, that even if they're less likely to have great success, there still feels more personal responsibility or opportunity. And I guess there's some opportunity in a normal career, but to me, it feels more limiting and constricting. Well, the way the usual workplaces are, to me, that the chances for great success in a normal work environment would be more similar to a lottery ticket. At least that's how I see it.
We shouldn't be too harsh on people. And I don't know how much I believe that, but they have to pay their bills. And it's easier for them to settle for something where the outcome might not be great, but at least they can pay their bills. And everything else you have to manage. You have to find a way to survive until maybe one day it works, but it won't be instant. Most of the times it isn't instant. It will take a long time and you have to survive all those years. That's why for a lot of people, it's out of the question, unfortunately. But I believe that you can always improve your situation if you want. And if you start taking good decisions. Now, if you have nothing to add, let's make a screen share and show me what you want to show me.
Yes, all right. What I'd like to look at is a common position, the big blind calling range. And for example, on a 9-player table with 100 big blinds, which is a little more than you start the hand with. If the first player makes a 2-3 big blind raise, here is how wide the big blind should be calling against that raise.
I'm on the big blind, you said, and the villain is early position. Under the gun 1. I don't understand. His range should not be that.
Their range is something like that, okay?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, but the defending range that's recommended would be this in the big blind.
Is he limping?
They're raising, I think, 2.5 big blinds in this example. 2 to 3 big blinds.
What are the green? The green is call. And the red is a raise. So I agree with the raise, with the call. Do I agree with the call? I don't think you should call with 6-4 offsuit when early position. How much did he put? Two big blinds on the table?
Let's say 2.5.
Why should I call in the big blind if I have 6-4 offsuit? That makes no sense to me, Norman. I'm sorry. Do I not get something?
Well, yet this is recommended.
If that's recommended, I should play every hand. Nearly every hand.
Well, not every hand. We see here call total is 61 and these red re-raise hands is 3.8. Roughly 2 out of 3 hands would be recommended.
I'm on the big blind. My range is a little tighter. I can show you my range. But that range, I would only play it on the big blind. I would play the early position range, the first range you showed me, that I would play. I would not play this.
Then you would be playing almost 3 times tighter than recommended in the big blind.
In the big blind, I want to be better than the early position to play a hand because I have to beat him. If my hand is really crappy, that's not a good idea. How will I beat the early position?
That what you say is true for every other position. If we look at low jack here, under the gun +1 raises your low jack, that's a middle position. And we see a lot of folds and then some calls and some raises. All these things, other positions, I think you would be more used to how they're playing. Maybe a little bit you would play tighter, for example, on the dealer button than this, but you would be somewhat similar. Also small blind. I could put you every position and you would be probably more often correct than incorrect. And it would follow that logic that you described, that you would want a hand that can compete against that under the gun +1 open. You'd want a good hand, pocket eights, you'd want queen 10 suited, you'd want maybe ace 7 suited, you would maybe fold sometimes, but I think some of these ranges would make sense to you why you would call versus an open. But every position like this, and then we get to big blind, and suddenly the whole chart goes from 17% call to 61% call. That is a very massive difference. It comes down to a few factors. Well, for one, I would want you to try to defend more on the big blind with hands that are weaker than theirs. They opened, you have 9-4 suited, maybe 6-4 off. Don't try with that at first, but try going wider. Hands like many of these hands here that you've so far folded, especially if they raise 2 big blinds. If they raise 2, I would say it's almost mandatory this. If you have 70, 80, a lot of big blinds, it's early levels. If we put it to 20 big blinds, and then actually it doesn't change so much. There's a bit more re-raising, but even later, even for less big blinds, there would be a lot defending. But then sometimes with 20, there's a bubble situation where you have to tighten up. I can see where there might be 5 players left, chip leader raises, you want to be tighter. It can make sense then. But in general, why raise or why call so wide in the big blind? Especially if they raise 2 big blinds or 2.5. If they go 3, then I would be slightly tighter than this, but still I would be defending hands that are weaker than they open, right? Even for 3 big blinds, I would defend a hand like 8-6 suited, which is a hand that under the gun +1 is never opening. Why is it recommended to defend all these weak hands? Well, it comes down to your good friend Poker Math and Pod Odds, and poker percent game, which we can practice some next lessons, which is if you're in the big blinds, how much big blinds are in the middle? If they raised 2.5, it's their raise, 2.5. It's the ante, which usually is 1 big blind. It's your big blind, and then it's the small blind, and also 2.5 from the blinds and the antes. There's 5 big blinds in the middle, and you only ask to call 1.5 big more. 1.5 to win 5. The reward there is a little more than 3 times than what you're risking. Based on poker math, it makes sense to defend your big blind if you can win it 1 in 4 times. And you have one opponent, their early position, they have a good hand, and you might just have 8-6 suited. You might just have even 6-4 off was there, or 6-5 off. You're gonna not win that hand very often, but you only have to win it 1 in 4 times. And actually all these bad hands that were green there, not all of them, 7-2 off wasn't there, Jack-5 off wasn't there, but almost all the suited hands. And then if we look back at it, like the off-suited hands which cards are close together, like the Jack-8, 7-5, Queen-9, and then a lot of the ace and a king as well. It's like the thought process of a defend there is, I'm entering the pot expecting to lose it. I'm mostly gonna lose it, but I'm only gonna lose 1.5 big blinds by defending. And if I win, I'll win at least 5. And sometimes the opponent bets when they don't have something. Sometimes you can make 2 pair or a straight. They get in big trouble because they open their ace-king, they open their aces, and now you win a huge pot with your crappy 7-4. That's where the real opportunities can come from it. And sometimes you just hit a 7, the other player has king-queen, but board doesn't have a king or a queen, and just 1-7 wins. All of that is not very likely. And in a funny way, that's how bad players play. That's how the big fish play in poker. This is a little bit recommending like that, but the difference here is it's only in the big blind. It's only when you're guaranteed a flop, which means you're last to go pre-flop. It's where you already have 1 big blind in. If someone raises 2 big blinds, I would think of it like a 50% discount. It's like you go to a store and you get 50% off. They raise to 2 big blinds, but you have to just call 1 big blind. If they raise 3 big blinds, you have to call 2 more. That's like a 33% discount. But actually even more than these numbers, because the small blind you can also win. The antes you can win. What I'd like you to do next week is concentrate on the big blind. And whenever you have more than 20 big blind, well, in general, to start defending wider, you don't have to start going from 0 to 100. That if before you folded queen 8 suited or queen 7 suited, now you don't have to start calling 6-4 off one hand you said, which is almost like the worst hand here. And if you defend, mostly what will happen on the flop is you will check, they will bet, and you will fold. But the whole point of this is a little bit like playing the lottery, just the topic we had today. This is taking something that the odds are not very good. Essentially, you're gonna very often lose 1 or 1.5 big blinds. But then when you don't lose it, then the pot's big enough to make up for that. And even if the opponent has good hands, all these hands here, for example, if I bring up this tool here, where I can give the opponent a range for under the gun +1, most people are a bit looser than this. Well, something like that. It doesn't have to be super exact. Early position raise, and we give you, well, we could give you the crappy 6-4, but let's give something just like a normal bad hand, like 8-5. It's not terrible, but it's pretty poor, 8-5. And we see the opponent would never play 8-5, and all their hands are better than 8-5. If we look at the winning chances, 8-5 actually wins it a third of the time. Now, in reality, you likely win it less often. It's tough to defend, you're out of position, you might have to fold a flop, you might even sometimes make a 5, they make a big bet, you have to fold. It's tough to win it 1/3 of the time, but you're probably gonna win it at least a quarter of a time, and that already would be good enough. Now, if we even take the 6-4, that funny hand, and see how often it wins more than a quarter of a time against all these hands. It wouldn't win if we give the opponent only aces. If they have aces, yeah, then we're not winning a quarter of a time. Then we're winning 1 in 6 times, which still is surprisingly often. 1 in 6 times with a crappy 6-4 against aces. They're not always gonna have the aces though. That's where we can win infrequently, mostly losing. All of this is mostly losing. But it's the ratio of what you're risking, and it might be usually in the big blind, you're just asked 1 big blind more, 1.5 big blinds more. But the reward can be 5, can be 6 big blind. It's fine to lose that 1 big blind a few times for that reward. And there's better hands here, like King 7 suited, which maybe you're folding right now against early position, which is true. Early position shouldn't be playing a hand like King 7 suited very often. If we look at your winning chances, a little better than third. And the funny thing is, it's not so different. King 7 wins 36%. If we give you 7-4 suited, it wins 31 something. It's worse, but it's just a 5% win difference between these two. And that's how that range got so wide, that If we even look at 7-2 suited, one of the worst hands you could imagine in poker, 7-2 suited. It's not a lot, but it's, if we add the tie percent as well, it's close to 30%. It's more than 1 in 4 times winning there. I think that's all for this introduction. If you want, I can share you this big blind defending range, but I think you got most of the idea of it. It was something like 60, all the suited hands were there pretty much. Now, if someone raises very big, if they raise 3.5, 4 big blinds, certainly it makes sense to start folding more then. But the range was, I think, something like that. And then it was something similar to this. Any suited hand, maybe keep the whatever 6-4, but call the hands like 6-5, 7-6, call the better ace and king. And even if you fold, if you go a little wider than this, you would still be doing a lot of defending from the big blind. And see how it goes. If it doesn't go well, that's okay. We can always readjust. But hopefully, how it will go is you will lose one big blind a little bit more often, but then you will get some new pots you win, where you win 5, 7, 10 big blinds with a hand you otherwise wouldn't have. I think that's all I would share on this today. And then next time, what I'd like to look at with you is range analyzer, which I think we've used some time in the past. But what I'd like to look with this is to make sense of your or the opponent's average hand. For example, if your opponent raises and the board comes down ace 9-4 and you have something like a 9, for example, would you be ahead of their average hand or below their average hand? Should we already be thinking of folding, or could we call a bet? These sorts of questions. And this tool is great for it because it shows you how often the opponent would have 3 of a kind with flush draws. Often a flush draw can be scary. And with a tool like that, we would see that, for example, this range would have a flush draw around 10% of the time. Certainly a danger, but not the most common thing. That's what I'd like to do next time. For example, what else could we look like? Board is 9-9-4. You have pocket sixes. The opponent bets. Should we fold? Should we call? And using these metrics here, which breaks down, you give a range and it gives down exactly what percent pair, what percent two pair, what percent flush draw, what percent straight draw. So on this board, you see straight draw is 0% because 9-9-4. No straight draws on 9-9-4. If we made the board 9-10 jack, then suddenly straight draws would be whopping 25%. Every fourth hand would be a straight draw on jack 10-9. Because any queen, I clicked somewhere away now. I think you got the point of that. Any comments? I went on a very long monologue. I'm sure you got a bit tired of it already.
No, it was interesting, Norman. I will try to find the range you showed me, and I will
share
put
it with you.
I will put it in my charts. The defending range for the big blind. And I should use that range when I'm facing a bet like 2 or 2.5 big blinds. Then I should use that range.
Yes, 2 or 2.5. If they go 3, I also want it to be a little wider than you've been, but not so wide. Then maybe you would take something like a few more hands than you've gone so far, but not dramatically wide. Especially if they go 4 or 5 big blinds, then I think your approach has been correct then. This applies mostly when the raise is small, that the pot odds get very good. Because if they raise very big, if they raise 6 big blinds, like your example in your hand today, doesn't really matter if you put 1 big blind in already. You have to put 5 more. That's the big difference there. But if they raise 2, and you already have 1 big blind, and then there's also the ante and the small blind, suddenly there's a lot of big blinds in the middle and you're only asked 1 more to have a chance, or 1.5. These scenarios exactly. I will send you some screenshots of those charts.
Okay, it sounds great. I will try to do that. It's a little for me like when you ask me to always bet one big blind when I heads up. At the beginning, I thought my chance of success are very low. And now it's still hard for me because I will have to play a card like 6-4 suited. And I don't know how I'm gonna win it unless I make a straight or something like this. And I think I will waste a lot of big blinds because you tell me I only have to win 1 in 4 times, but I don't think I will actually win 1 in 4 times. I get the impression I would win maybe 1 in 10.
Even that could be good if then you win a big pot. If then you win 15, 20 big blinds or an all-in, even then it could be good. But I think with your heads-up experience, you've noticed, hopefully, that there's times where you can just win with your 6-4 by making a 4. And the 4 will be enough and the hand will be won by you.
Yes, that's correct. No, with the heads up, it works doing that. Well, I actually don't do it all the time. Sometimes I give up on it. If I only have 3 big blinds left and the opponent has 6 or 9, then I'm not interested in betting that 0.5 big blind and limping because now I really want to double up to get a chance. But if not, yes, it's worth it. Just if the handicap is too big, if the distance between me and him is too huge, then I'm not interested in trying 0.5. Then I only want to gamble. But if not, it's worth it. In a lot of scenarios, it is worth trying. Okay, Norman, it's awesome to talk with you. Thanks a lot for the lesson. It was great. And
yes, thank you as well. Always you bring these interesting topics, right? I feel like you always, I don't know how you get all these news or things, but you seem to always find very interesting content.
Thank you. Thank you. My YouTube channel helps, and being able to do some research with ChatGPT, deep research, and so on, all that gives you an immense amount of resources, an immense amount of things you can think about and try to understand better. But thanks a lot. I also found it very interesting, and I think most people would if they took the time to take a look at it. Thanks a lot for agreeing with that and encouraging me. It's nice when people say nice stuff because last week I met my friend again, the one who doesn't want me to put certain things in my book. And last time she was even harder with me. She said I'm a nobody and nobody will ever care what I do.
It's like a real friend.
And I should give up because it doesn't matter if I post 3K videos or 300K videos, nobody will ever be interested in what I do.
Big fan you have there. Big fan.
It's nice when you say something that kind to me. Thanks a lot, Norman. She's not always bad. If not, she wouldn't be my friend. It's just sometimes she turns toxic and she says really mean stuff. But she also has her qualities. With some people, when they showed me in the past that they had a lot of qualities, I don't want to just break up with them because they said something hard. She might change her opinion. And if she showed me in the past that she actually cares and is a friend, then I have to forgive her when she says something that hurts. It's not that it really hurt me, but it's like I would compare it to when you get stick from a bee. You won't die from it, but you still feel the hurt. Because everybody has an ego and everybody tries to do the best. And when you do that and the person sees that you do that over a long extended period of time, and then she just tells you you're nobody and you should give up. It makes no sense of doing the effort. It's like a bee that sticks. You will feel the hurt a little, but it passes. I'm all right. I'm laughing about it and I will meet her soon again and I won't be mad at what she said. As you said, it is astonishing how cruel people can be sometimes.
Good that you see the positive in people. It sounds like that you recognize that because I feel like sometimes for me, if I don't like something about a person, it's very easy to look past all the good qualities. It's very easy to concentrate on the things I don't like about a person than to see all the other things. So that's very, I guess, strong character from you that you're able to see all the other or not forget about all the other good things, even when someone can be very insensitive, as you put it, I think, as you explained it there.
You have to look at the whole picture. And I think you have to put a line in the sand. There are certain things that person can never do. Now, this what she did are only words, and her actions don't confirm her words. Sometimes people say something just to hurt you, but then they act in a different way. They try actually to help you with their actions. Not everybody is consistent, but you have to defend yourself. If it's just toxicity and it gets very dangerous, then you have to break up. But if it's just a couple of words like that from time to time, and we can laugh about it, and it makes me a stronger person if I can endure it and not get a mental breakdown. So it's also an exercise. And you have to look at the whole picture, but you have to put a line somewhere, and you cannot allow people to do anything with you. There has to be a line. You have to protect yourself at one moment. But with that person, she says that one day, and the next day she does you a huge favor. I cannot be too mad with her. Anyways, Norman, thanks a lot. You're great, and it's a real pleasure to see you once a week. Thanks for your time and your dedication. Take care. Bye-bye.
All the best. See you. Bye.